Mallory, do you ever commit tax fraud, get exposed for it, and then decide to create a $1 billion slush fund for all of your friends? Same.
That
Can't relate. Can't relate. If this makes you feel like we should actually have competent folks in Congress, then you are in luck with who we have joining us today. I am Maggie Gelson Burnett.
And I'm Mallory Hagan. This is Pretty Furious. I would love to have $1 billion slush fund. What do you mean?
Fucking same. Oh my God. Do you know what?
Can you imagine if
what
I
we
was like,
could
hey,
accomplish?
Maggie, guess what I did? I decided that anyone who's been mean to you should get compensated for it. And so,
Perfect. Perfect.
God. Anyway, how's your week been?
You know what, girl? We are moving and grooving. We are moving and grooving. We are in week 33 of pregnancy, year 10.
So close.
And Mallory, you have been traveling, and then you had the primaries in Alabama, and you've been sick for like well over a month now.
Yeah, we're going on 2 months now. So my life is just dandy.
Sick.
No, it is good. It is good. Things are good.
Doing well.
This week we learned that, we might lose our 2 Democratic congressional districts in Alabama. And actually the candidate that we had on here, Dakari Lariat, who I'm working with, is headed to a runoff. So that part's
Yes.
exciting. But yeah, just taking in the news every day.
Yep. This will
Taking
be
it in stride.
Our second runoff candidate that we've had on the show. We had Sean Harris in Georgia and then Dakari. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
We have a wonderful candidate for Congress joining us today in Colorado that I'm very excited about. But before we get into that, we want to be sure that you're following us everywhere. So be sure that you're following at Pretty Furious Pod, wherever you find your podcasts. We are on Substack, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on maybe X. I don't even know where we live anymore, but we're literally everywhere. So yeah, find us, follow us, and yeah, stay tuned in to all the upcoming episodes. We have another really good one coming next week. That is a part 2 episode to a very, very good part 1. We'll plug that in the next week. Not to give too much away.
That was decidedly vague, but okay. We have an exciting guest both today and next week, and we look forward to you all tuning in. Also, make sure you're following the Siren, who is our parent network, if you will, over on Substack. Make sure you're following the Siren, getting their updates. They have also incredible content coming out daily, all day, every day. So if you want to keep up with what's going on in the world in a more timely fashion than your once a week episode of Pretty Furious, then by all means, the Siren is your place to be. So make sure you're there. So Maggie, what headline has made you pretty furious this week?
Yes, this one is from the Associated Press, I believe. This is Justice Department announces nearly $1.8 billion fund to compensate Trump allies in a deal to drop the IRS suit. So a slew of issues, obviously, with this entire ordeal. I could start at the top of the list with the IRS suit and the document that they signed the other day saying that Trump is now like basically null and void from being prosecuted by any government agency in the future. What the fuck? Okay. That seems not legal, but fine. And then, basically, what I said in our opening, he commits tax fraud, decides he doesn't want to deal with the tax fraud and wants to pay his friends instead. And he's going to do it with American taxpayer money. So this just reminds me of like the quintessential guy from your hometown who makes like 65 grand a year, who's like got a Trump flag on the back of his truck being like, yeah, I fucking love this guy. Like, what do you think he's doing for you exactly? Like, that is my question to any American who's still supporting this man. So yeah, the psychosis that these people
I can tell you exactly what he's
now.
doing for them. And what he's doing for them is going after the brown people.
Yeah, that's fair.
Whether it's through ICE or through voting rights, I mean, anyone who they do not think should be doing better than them is being in many ways attacked by the government, and that makes them feel good. And that's it.
Yeah,
That's all there
exactly.
is to it. I mean, there's no rational explanation at this point for continuing to be a supporter of Donald Trump or this administration because, you know, we're going to get into some of the things that Congress should be
Yeah.
doing, but at the end of the day, they're not doing anything to better anyone's lives, and in fact, they're making people's lives worse.
Yeah.
So,
Not to mention
yeah,
that the person overseeing all of this is Trump's former personal defense attorney. So,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, conflict of interest.
It's a huge
So
conflict
yeah,
of interest. But on
yeah.
top of that, this is the party that has I guess tried to own the support of the police. They're the back the blue folks, and these are the people on January 6th who led an insurrection, who tried to
Mm-hmm.
overturn a free and fair election. These are the very people who harmed police officers,
Yeah.
who
Mm-hmm.
harmed the people who were protecting the Capitol. And we're over at the Siren. We've got Harry Dunn as a part of our
Yes.
crew of creators, and Harry just launched a lawsuit against this administration for
Love
this very
Harry.
fund. So if you haven't read about that, go check it out. But yeah, I mean,
Not to mention that Mallory, they are the party of law and order, as you were saying, and Miss Jamie Lee, who messaged me on Instagram. I don't think she's Southern, but her name is spelled with a Y, so therefore, in my eyes, she's Southern. Um, she's some like Fox News pundit. I don't know. She messaged me on Instagram and was like, "You need to stop being mean to women on the internet." And I was like, "The fuck, I will."
yeah.
So
How about stop being
yeah,
stupid?
she said that her support for Trump lies in obviously protecting children first and foremost, and then
Yes.
secondly in the being the party of law and order, restoring law and order, folks. So shout out
And
Jamie
the only
Lee.
way to do that is to have a con man at the helm.
Exactly, and a
The only way to
pedophile.
restore the party of order is to
Cool.
have a man who, by the way, Steve Bannon, I don't know if these people remember, Steve Bannon literally stood on stage and said if Trump wasn't president, we'd all be in jail. But yeah, sure,
Fully.
fully, absolutely. Well,
What's your headline?
my headline has to do, it's from Politico. It has to do with RFK. RFK Jr. fires leaders of group that determine what insurers must cover. So this group
Nice.
helps decide. So it's the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force, and they help decide which screenings and preventative services insurers must cover at no cost to patients, and that was under the Affordable Care Act. So he has called them lackadaisical and negligent, and he wants new members on this task force. And so, people worry that that these changes could undermine obviously the trust in this task force and obviously the independence. And it's kind of scary to think that he's going to be putting in place the people who will determine what your health insurers have to cover when it comes to
Yeah.
preventive care. So, there's a lot of
He's
things that
like,
are,
cover Zen for everyone.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it causes
Heroin's free.
confusion. But there's a lot of other issues, right? Like it could reduce what's covered for screenings, or it could reduce mental health care. Like there's a
Yeah,
lot of
totally.
problems with that. And, make America healthy again, except just don't follow science and instead follow the guy who's got a brainworm.
What I'm just picturing is RFK Jr. like on his laptop before this, typing in like lackadaisical and being like, how to
Ooh, I
make
like that
myself
word.
sound smarter. Like,
Daisical.
literally.
Daisical. I actually probably had too much sound coming out there.
You
Anyway.
you you couldn't sound like him if you tried.
Thank God.
So unfortunately.
Thank
So
God.
well, speaking of party of law and order, all of those good things, we have a wonderful guest joining us today. She's running for Congress in the state of Colorado. This will be a really fun district to watch. So I'm really excited that we had a chance to interview her. We have Jessica Killin joining us today. A fourth generation Coloradan, Jessica Killin's life has been shaped by a commitment to service and a deep love for her state and country. She was raised in a middle-class Colorado Springs home by public school educators. She learned the early values of hard work and community. After graduating from Falcon High School, Jessica earned an ROTC scholarship and served as a paratrooper and military police police officer in the U.S. Army before working as a business leader and advocate for veterans and military families. I'm sorry, paratrooper? That's fucking cool. Jessica is running for Congress because she believes both parties need new leadership, and she is fed up with politicians who put partisan politics ahead of serving the people they are supposed to represent. She will work across the aisle to find solutions for working Coloradans, and she will never be afraid to stand up to extremists in either party to do what's right for Southern Colorado. Let's welcome Jessica to Pretty Furious. Jessica, welcome. We are so excited to have you here on Pretty Furious. You have brought a headline with you that has made you pretty furious this week. Would you mind sharing it with us?
The gas prices, well, thank you for having me, by the way, Maggie and Mallory. Really appreciate it. And I'll say, I know this is around the country, but here in Colorado Springs and El Paso County, the gas prices are almost at $5 a gallon, which is crazy. And the fact that we've already spent over $30 billion of taxpayer money on this conflict in Iran, and it's causing and we're seeing the increasing of costs at the pump and skyrocketing gas prices is just a double whammy for the American people and for Coloradans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are when you're out on the campaign trail, gas prices are certainly a topic of conversation.
Sure.
But what are some of the other things that people, maybe some unexpected items or things that kind of catch you off guard when you're talking with people who will be voting at this June?
Yeah, I mean, even before gas prices were skyrocketing, what I heard about most is a cost of living crisis happening in our community and in El Paso County in particular. We have not enough affordable housing, not enough housing, where people can actually afford to get into their first home. We also have a childcare desert here, and you cannot we don't have access to childcare, and childcare is also too expensive. And then beyond that, I think people are starting to get really fed up with the corruption of this administration and that no one is standing up to it. The chaos, the corruption, people are exhausted and they just want to go about their daily lives. They want to be able to get their kids to school. They want to have a good job. They want to have a roof over their head. And nothing that is happening in this administration and what my opponent is doing is only making people's lives harder and more expensive and more chaotic every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talk about so I mean you live in the Colorado's 5th congressional district where you're running.
Yeah.
It has historically been one of the most reliably red districts in the state.
Yeah.
But you kind of mentioned before we got on here that that's shifting a little bit. What does this mean if you were to win for the balance of power in the House, but also maybe what does this mean for people who live outside of Colorado?
Well, I think outside of Colorado, I think it's absolutely critical that we flip the House this year and to, first of all, provide and bring people real solutions to the cost of living crisis that so many people across our
Hmm.
country are facing. But in addition to that, to put a check on the lawlessness, the corruption, and the overreach of this administration. And the best way to do that is to flip the House. And as we were just discussing, given all the other redistricting efforts across the country, this is going to be seats like mine are going to be critical to doing that. And, we need more what I call team normal people in Congress who are actually focused
Yeah.
on delivering results, who are actually focused on pragmatic solutions, who are not afraid to work across the aisle and talk to people who disagree with me and find common ground. And I think that will make a difference for people across the country, not just here in my district.
Yeah, absolutely. So you are a veteran. You served in the military, and now we're kind of watching as the United States navigates an increasingly volatile conflict in Iran. As somebody who has worn the uniform, you have been in that position before. What do you think that civilian lawmakers are maybe getting wrong about what military engagement actually costs, and maybe even what would your approach be that's a little bit different?
Yeah, well, I think that yes, I'm a military veteran, and I think it's important to note also that in my district we have 5 military installations, about 100,000 veterans. So here in my district in particular, everyone has some connection to the military community, and so what I hear about here on the ground, and we can talk about lawmakers, is if you raised your right hand to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, you take quite seriously decisions to put our troops in harm's way and the way that we are spending taxpayer dollars. And I think most people in my district know and understand the real consequences of that. And also, anyone who's who knows anything about foreign policy knew before we got into this that the Strait of Hormuz would be a problem. And sure enough, it is a problem, and there's no easy way out. That's why we haven't gone to war or been in a conflict with Iran historically, is because the decision makers at the table knew and understand the inherent risks of it and the disproportionate warfare we would be engaged in. And, obviously some, in my opinion, some poor decision making. This is why we need to get Congress involved, so that we can make decisions that are actually strategic and thoughtful. And here in my district, people know and understand that in a really unique and visceral way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, speaking of other ways that people are dealing with rising costs or access to things that they once had access to. Earlier, you were saying that they're making things worse, and we have often said if this administration just did nothing, like literally
It would be
nothing at all, we would be better off today than we were the day that
yeah,
they took office.
Literally.
But in addition to clawing back the subsidies for healthcare for people across the country. Now, just today, RFK is firing the group of people who determine what health insurers will actually cover in the first place, putting people at risk for things like mental health coverage or cancer screenings, things of that nature. What do you say to that?
I think I'm concerned across the board, to your point about the brain drain that is happening across our government and decisions that are setting us back, not moving us forward. So to your point, we not only, yes, we would be in a better situation overall if they would just stop doing so much damage, but that's makes it all the more important that that I win my seat and that we have people in Congress who are actually focused on making people's lives better. What I hear all the time across the board is that healthcare, health insurance premiums, healthcare deductibles are way too expensive already, and we know that moves like this and provisions of the One Big Beautiful Bill are only going to make that worse for all Americans and all Coloradans, kicking people off of healthcare, making it more expensive. And the fact that, the percentage of income that is now spent on healthcare has tripled in the last 20 years or so is it's crazy. And they're only making that worse. So we need to start actually having people in Congress and electing people in Congress who are focused on solutions, not digging us further into this hole that we're in right now.
Speaking of, though, I'm
Yeah.
a little curious. So I think a lot of us who are Democrats who have witnessed the momentum of the elections that have happened over the last 6 months, whether special elections or otherwise, we're feeling like, logic was on our side and that morality might prevail. And then we had the Kentucky primary this week where Massey, who has famously stood up to Donald Trump, specifically regarding the Epstein files, Trump ran someone against him, and that guy is even more far right, and he won, right? So there is this. There's a side of me that was like, surely, maybe not in Alabama, but surely, logic will prevail. We will claw our way out of this mess by electing people who are sane. And then you have
Uh-huh.
something like that happens in Kentucky. How does that make you feel about like the energy in Colorado or what you might see at the end of June?
I think the what I'm learning through all this and is that the Republican primary electorate is probably not indicative of where most Americans
Hmm.
and most Coloradans
Fair.
are.
Yeah.
I talk a lot. People are like, "Are you moderate? Are you progressive?" I'm team normal. I just want stuff to work. And I think that that is where most people are. So I think sometimes these primary, yes, Donald Trump has a hold on the Republican Party like a vice grip hold. But that, I think, when you start going, though, into November, we're going to see some different results because I think most people, to your point, are pragmatic. Most people don't want chaos. Most people are team normal.
Hmm.
They want their government to work for them. They don't want to be exhausted and stressed out about what's happening in Washington, and they want better lives. And so for sure, that is indicative of what's happening in the primary electorates, but the general election, I think, is going to be different.
Yeah. We're exhausted.
I really
Yeah.
I really want to encourage your team that if they haven't yet already, if they do make Team Normal hats, I would buy one.
Same.
So I just
Team
want
normal,
to
team normal buttons, but maybe
perfect.
we need
Yeah,
to get
maybe
some.
hats or a t-shirt. Yeah, I would buy
Yeah.
one. So I mean, you're anything but normal though. I mean, you're a woman who has served in the military. I think I'm fascinated by women who serve. Um, so you've done that, and now you're running for Congress. Both of those things are things that when I think about a woman doing them, I mean, of course, it's amazing, but obviously your experience is going to be different from a man's experience. So I'm curious, like how maybe your experience in the military as a woman has prepared you for this journey that you're now going on, running for office.
Yeah, I think for sure, when I talk about besides being team normal, why I'm running because I'm a patriot. And my core values, loving my country, my sense of service were instilled in me when I was in the army, when I was serving as a lieutenant and then a captain in the military police corps. But there's other experiences that I've had along the way, working in the private sector for over a decade at USAA, also working in leadership roles on Capitol Hill that have really informed me in term, and I think give me a certain grounding in terms of what works and how to come at these problems with real pragmatic solutions. I've spent, I grew up in this district, spent, years in the military and then at USAA. I know and understand how to talk to Republicans, to conservatives. I'm not afraid of being uncomfortable. I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think that that is the kind of experience that you need to really be an effective member of Congress and certainly to be an effective representative of my district. And I think, women in particular, but women who've had those types of experiences, um, are really are much more successful in actually getting stuff done, which is what people want. They want someone who's actually going to get stuff done.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to say, Mallory, if you weren't already going to mention it, I was like, well, Mallory has actually, Mallory has run for office twice, and so,
Oh,
and is a former Miss America. So, I mean, understands that very well. I think,
Yeah.
definitely more than I.
Well, my question was for you, you talk about getting stuff done and having those experiences that you've had. What is the first thing? What is the first thing that when
yeah.
you are walking the halls of Congress is going to be on your mind to get something done for the people of Colorado?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of work to be done. And, I think we have to be pragmatic, like I said, about that Donald Trump will still be in the White House when I am sworn in. But my first goal is to address some of the healthcare costs and health that everyone across the country is dealing with. The most egregious provisions of the One Big Beautiful Bill are supposed to take effect in early 2027. So we are going to have to shore up essentially the ACA and address some of these Medicaid cuts. I think we're going to be in a triage situation, honestly. And the next big piece, I think, is to put a check on the Trump tariffs that are wreaking havoc on the small businesses in my community,
Yeah.
and also, it's a regressive tax that's impacting lower income people and even worse. So those would be sort of be the two top pieces, and just putting a check net also on some of the corruption. I'm a capitalist, but I'm not a crony capitalist, and I think most Americans understand um, that what is happening right now that is enriching just the lucky few is not. It's not good for our government. It's not good for most Americans across the country. So those are sort of the top three things we're just going to have to address on day one. And obviously, I have a lot of work to do though to shore up the economy.
Yeah. One more question.
Yeah.
So I'm in a military family. My husband's active duty
Oh,
and
thank
he
you for your service.
well, same to
Yeah.
you. And his brother, his father is a veteran. And so I know as well as the next person that this administration has actually betrayed our veterans in a lot of different ways. What does that feel like for you, being a veteran, having served your country, knowing all the ways that this administration has ripped away healthcare opportunities, jobs, things like that? What do you say to that concept?
You know, it makes me sad. As a party that cloaks itself in patriotism, doing the most unpatriotic thing there is, which is not treating our veterans with the dignity and respect that they deserve. And that's why we need real patriots who care about the future of our country, who care about our veterans and our service members, who care about the next generation. And that is why I believe I will win this race. And by the way, I would be remiss if I did not mention my website is killinforcolorado.com, Killin. So I'd love people to check it out and learn more about me and who I am and what I stand for. But I think that people like me are going to be critical to taking our country back.
By the way, amazing last name for branding.
I was
Killin-
just gonna
Killin
say
for
yeah.
Colorado. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
I was gonna say whoever's the lucky campaign manager that gets to work with that is very blessed. Well, kind of going back to what we were talking about in terms of the economy and these rising prices for the average American, I think a lot of people are, rightfully so, very jaded in this country right now. Like they're over it. People are even, skipping out on voting just because they're like, what is that going to do? And I think, kind of as a byproduct of that, people look at a single member of Congress and they think, well, what can a single member do? And so I'm kind of curious what you would say to somebody who maybe is like an apprehensive voter or somebody who is kind of going in with that mindset going into these primaries of, well, what can just a single member of Congress do for me?
Yeah, well, I'll say first and foremost, by the way, on names, my opponent his name is Jeff Crank, so bad name versus good name.
Exactly.
That's
So,
great.
but I'll say, here in my community, Jeff Crank, he simply does not show up. He has his office is by appointment only. He hasn't had a single in-person town hall. So, and I think that, one of the biggest parts of being a member of the House of Representatives is showing up in your community, listening, engaging, showing them that you care, actually learning from our community members. And so that's one thing. It's a little thing, but it's pretty important. Just showing up and doing the job. And I also believe in leading by example and being engaged and talk. When I vote, explaining why I'm voting, explaining how it impacts my community. You keep doing that, and and also talking with people across the aisle and expressing why I'm doing that and what solutions I'm working toward. Little by little, if we have more people in Congress who are doing that and setting that example, setting that tone, that can help create bigger changes in Congress. And I I've said for a long time, I've watched Congress cede its power to the executive branch now for
Mhm.
5 presidents. We need people in Congress who care about getting stuff done and actually delivering results and taking back the power of Congress. And it's going to happen one by one person at a time. But I think having people in Congress who are setting that example and doing the hard work is a good start. And that's how we get people engaged. And I think the other piece, and this sort of hits on the sort of the corruption piece. We need people to believe in their government officials again.
Mhm. Yeah.
And people are disaffected because,
Yeah.
well, they feel like, to your point, that nobody's working for them. They're only working for themselves.
Hmm.
Store a sense of integrity to public service. And, I've been an advocate for banning public stock ownership and stock trading, obviously overturning Citizens United to try to get some of that dark money out of politics. These are things that I think are important for people believing in their governmental institutions and their public servants again.
Yeah, it is. It's so hard, for the longest time, and I'm, young enough, I guess, that I've only been in politics for maybe like 10 years now, so it's not that long, but just even the shift that I feel when I'm talking with people and voters, like at first I was so like, come on, if we just elect good people, then it'll be fine. And now it's like when someone comes to you and they say that they're two sides of the same coin. First of all, no, they're not. I'm not going there. We're not two sides of the same coin. One side is absolutely horrendously morally corrupt, and the other side
Yeah.
probably has some issues. Yes, we could agree on that. But when people come to me and they're like, I just don't even understand, like everyone's out for themselves, like you just said, it's hard to disagree with them sometimes because, you do
Yeah.
know those representatives who are there so that they can trade stocks, write their book, get their lobbying, job after they're done with their years serving in Congress. And it's exhausting. And it's also exhausting to look at the representatives that we have and the ages that they are and know that, like,
Oh, yeah.
as millennials, we are sorely underrepresented in all facets of our government, not to mention generations to follow us. So it is understandable, but it is also so important that we, like you just said, really work to elect people who change that narrative, right? Like who are in their communities. I think it has become the norm for people to not know who represents them, to never see them at events, to never see them at public events or functions, and that's just not right. Right? Like,
To me, it's sad. That's really sad. And, and I will say that's one of my biggest concerns around gerrymandering is that, is it just creating more safe seats where people don't have to do the work. That's the one thing I love about my seat that I'm running in. You have to work for this.
yeah.
The incumbent is not doing the job. That's one of the reasons I think I'm going to win. But we need more districts that are truly swing districts because then they get the representation they deserve. You get someone who shows up and does the work. And I think that makes Congress more effective. And yeah, I think it's sad that people don't know who represents them. That's a failure in terms of our government, for sure.
Well, and that's why everybody, no matter your party,
Yeah.
should be against gerrymandering for that very reason, because gerrymandered into a safely red state like Alabama means that your representatives are never going to hear you, even if you do agree with them from the party line, which is a really dangerous place for
Right.
us to be politically.
Yeah.
Last question. You're running in a district that we mentioned earlier hasn't sent a Democrat to Congress in quite some time.
Yep.
What
Never.
do you say to a voter who says, I agree with you, but I don't think you can win?
Well, I mean, I think first, this district, a lot of we've had a massive population boom in this district. I think people know and see and understand how the district is changing. And they're also, they want something different. Jeff Crank is a do nothing backbencher who basically does whatever Donald Trump tells him to. And I think people want someone who's going to stand up for them, who's going to fight for them, who's going to listen and engage. And it's not about that I have a D behind my name. It is about the work that I will do, that I will show up, that I will listen. I think most people that's what they want. They want someone who's going to actually work for them. And I think that's what I try to convey to people. And that's how we win this, by the way, and is by showing up, engaging, talking, listening to each other. One of the things we talked about a little bit today is, people are so lost in their silos and their own echo chambers and their tribes. We've got to get people out of that. And that's, I try to break free from that all the time and actually talk to people who they may disagree with me on 5 things, but we can find another 7 that we do agree on. And that is how a Democrat, a team normal Democrat, wins.
Yes, team
Yeah.
normal.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I know Valerie said that was the last question, but I actually have one more. So,
Okay.
so you in this journey of running for Congress, I'm curious maybe what has been the most surprising part to you or maybe even the best part, and then what has been the hardest, most challenging part of all of this?
That's interesting. I think the best part, I'm doing a lot of house parties. I started doing house parties in like November, December. I love them. I love
Yeah.
being in people's homes, answering their questions, really getting to know people in a really sort of comfortable setting. And it's for sure my favorite part. And I think we've done close to 40 of them, and it's
Oh my gosh.
great. I'm hoping to get to 100 before I.
So fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
So that's my favorite part. I think the hardest part, as someone who's worked in many male-dominated fields throughout my career, the military, financial services, I have never felt misogyny the way I feel it running for Congress.
Yep.
It's a real thing, ladies, and it's not fun.
It's I think the thing that was so crazy to me, like Maggie mentioned that I was Miss America, and that has its own world. However, you get used to someone telling you like, not those shoes, not that dress, this dress, and your hair should be shorter or longer or blonder or browner or whatever it is. And I experienced it so much more running for office. The amount of opinions
Yeah.
that perfect
Mhm.
strangers
Oh,
had
yeah.
on like what I was wearing, what I was saying, how I was coming across. I was just like, oh my gosh. And that's
Yeah.
just on the external. The misogyny
Yeah.
runs deep in the inner party politics and the tables that you sit at and all of that. It is.
But the good thing we know is that women with national security backgrounds, though, perform exceptionally well in congressional races like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So we will, I believe we can move past that, but it's been a fascinating part of running.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I believe it for sure.
well, we want to thank you for your service. Thank you for stepping into this race, for being a patriot, and most of all, for being Team Normal.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Thanks for joining us,
I've
Jessica.
enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much.